Welcome to Yadi Code. In this video, I am going to show you how to create a simple text editor using the Tkinter package in Python. It's not going to be a very basic video because I've already shown the basics of Tkinter in my previous video. You can check it out. But I'm just going to show some additional things that you would do if you want to create this text editor. I've initially followed a tutorial on realpython.com, but I added a few things because I was trying to explore and see how much I could personalize the editor. Initially, I thought about Microsoft Word because as I did it, I could just think how they use a similar package to create the application that we see when we open up Word. So it's really fun when you're able to just look at everyday applications that you use and you're able to visualize what the code is behind the front end of this application. So I'm just going to jump right into it. Going to PyCharm, I only created one script and just over 100 lines of code, including all these spaces, but hey, let's get to it. So the first thing always is to import the packages that you need, which I did in the first 4 lines. I've imported regular expressions, Tkinter file dialog, and random, and soon you'll see why I needed all these extra packages besides the just Tkinter. I'm using 4 functions, and functions essentially mean what will the program do whenever you click a particular button. So if you click open, it's going to run open file. If you click save, it will run save file. If you click change font, it will run the change font function. And count is just going to count the number of words or characters that's in the text box in real time. After these functions, I've created my window for the application using window equal GUI.tk. I've given it the title text editor, changed my background color, and then just basic settings such as the size, the default size of the window. I only have one frame, and it's a frame for my buttons that I've created here. And the buttons are going to be open, save, change font, and there are also 3 labels, one that displays the word count, one for character count, and one for the font type. Now, after creating these buttons and this frame, as usual, you have to add them to your window. So using the grid method, I add all my buttons to my frame by putting them one after the other. You can see row 1, 2, 4, 8, 10, 12, based on what looked good to me. And finally, I added my button to my window using the grid method as well. To the right of my frame, that's the frame for the buttons, is a text box, and this text box is where all the action is going to happen, and I've added the text box using grid. Now you know it's to the right because if you notice this line, it says grid column equals 0. That's the very first column, but for text box it says column equals 1, which means it's right after the frame for button. Finally, I've used the bind method to bind your keyboard presses to the text box, which means anything that happens in the text box whenever you're typing is going to execute this function called count, and that's how we're going to be able to get the word and character count in real time. And as usual, very importantly, you must have something that displays this application, and that's our window.main loop. So let's go back up to our functions to see how they will make this program come alive. Function is the one that will be executed whenever you click the open button. And what it will do once the user clicks open, it will open up a dialog box that allows the user to open a file from the local from their local device. After this file is selected, the function will then delete anything that's in the text box and then add that new file to the text box using the .read method. And of course, it will change the title of the window to text editor, whatever the file path is. Similarly, for save file, it will open up a dialog box so the user can save the file to their local device, and it will change the name of the window to text editor, whatever the file path is. I'll jump down to change font since it's also a button. whenever the user clicks change font. So I didn't want to give them the option to select what font they want. So I created a list of fonts I like, or random fonts, and with different settings, font size, bold, whatever. And then using random, whenever the user clicks change font, the function will randomly select a choice from the font list, and then that font will be applied here to the text box. And I've also edited the label so that it displays the new font that was selected. Finally, the count function is going to, in real time, count the number of words and characters in the text box, and it does that by using the keyboard or key press that we had at the end when we said textbox.bind. So first, I used words as a variable, and this variable contains everything in the text box. And we do that by saying get everything, which is here, from the text box. After getting everything, using len, L-E-N, that's a built-in Python method, it will count every single thing in that variable, whether it's spaces, letters, words, whatever it is, and the length of that will be the number of characters in the text box. And I display that here by saying edit the label for character count and put whatever number you get when you say the length of the words that you've retrieved. I know it's a bit confusing because I call the variable words when it's actually not just getting words, but it's getting everything. Now, after you get all or everything in the text box, in order to find the words, we're going to use regular expression that find all, and you're going to say separate, every time a new word is there, that's going to be like one word. That makes sense. So that's what this little thing means. So you get everything from the text box in this line. Then you find all words in that, big mass of text that you have, and then find the length of all those words. So after doing that, the function will then edit the word count label to display whatever the word count is from that line. Now, of course, these are just functions. There must be a way to connect the function to the button, and you do that by using the command method when you create your button. So for instance, for the open button, you create your button, put it to your frame, put your text on it saying open, your background, whatever settings you need, and then you assign the open file function as a command to that button. So whenever you press open, it will always run this function called open file. And likewise, it's the same for save file and change font. Now let's run this code and see what happens. Time to see if Microsoft have a competition. All right, so here's the interface for the simple text editor. This is the frame with all the buttons that I created: open, save as, change font, and this is the default, this is the 0 words, 0 characters that it's going to show, and the default font if you decide to type. Right, here's my text box, which I'm going to start typing, and you'll see tutorial by Yadi Code. And you can see the word count and character is changing as soon as I type. Now let's see if we can open something. What happens? I click the open button. It brings up my downloads folder from my computer. Let's open up the slave must pay. And now you realize it deleted what was there before in order to display this new file that I've opened up. Let's change the font and see what happens. Ooh, it randomly changes to Verdano 20. The text box increased, the size of the text box, or the window, increased in order to facilitate this new larger font. Can change it again, it gets smaller to Cambria 8 bold again, and it's random, so I don't know if it's going to bring us back to Arial soon. Here we go. Let's say I want to change something, and it was like bye, and now save this file. Let's save it as Yadi Code Things, save, and you see right here at the top for the title for the window, it changes to Yadi Code Things instead of the slave must pay. So there we go, a perfectly working text editor created in just over 100 lines of code in Python. of course, this is just a tutorial, it's just practice, but it really helps you to visualize how similar more well-known text editors work, and it lets you know that you can do it too. You know, every text editor started simple, I'd imagine, and then they started to add more things to, so it gets to the stage that it's at. No, I'm just rambling on. But thanks for watching. This was definitely a fun project for me, and I hope it's just as fun for you. I'll put the link to my GitHub profile in case you want to look at the source code and, make any changes or just practice on your own. Thanks again for watching, and see you in the next video.